The training deck smelled like metal and sweat. Floated in the zero-gravity chamber, his magnetic boots switched off as the simulation required. Around him, 60 cadets from across the galaxy prepared for the boarding drill. Most of them stood twice his height. Some had 4 arms. Others had scales thick enough to stop bullets. Was just human. 5 feet 9 inches of soft earth flesh in a universe built for warriors. "Pair up," instructor barked, his voice grinding through the translator like rocks in a crusher. The stood at the edge of the training deck, his crystalline body reflecting the harsh overhead lights. "You have 30 seconds to breach the enemy vessel. Begin." His partner was unnamed. The alien was massive, with shoulders as wide as a door and arms that looked like they could bend steel. Grabbed by the shoulder, his grip tight enough to bruise. "Try to keep up, Earth flesh," said through his translator. They launched into the simulation. Holographic walls materialized around them, creating the interior of a hostile ship. Pushed off a wall, trying to reach the objective marker floating in the center of the room. He was fast in zero gravity. Humans adapted well to space, actually. Their inner ears adjusted quickly, and their flexible bodies could. The impact came from behind, slammed into him, accidentally using too much force. His body flew across the chamber like a missile. He crashed into a bulkhead with a sickening crunch. Pain exploded across his ribs and face. He tasted blood, felt it running hot from his nose, dripping from a cut above his eye. The training deck spun around him. His magnetic boots, activated by impact sensors, locked him to the floor. He tried to breathe, but his ribs screamed in protest. "Pathetic," someone said in, the bear-like species that controlled 3 sectors of the outer rim. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The sound came through dozens of translator implants, creating an echo that made his head pound. He looked up through the blood and saw them all watching. 60 pairs of alien eyes, and most of them were amused. "Earth flesh tears like paper," a thresher clicked, her mandibles chattering with glee. "Why do they even send their young to die here?" another voice added. Instructor watched from his platform. He didn't move to help, didn't stop the laughter. In the Galactic Coalition Military Academy, weakness was not tolerated. If you couldn't survive training, you had no business fighting wars. Tried to stand. His legs shook, his vision blurred. He'd broken something, he was sure of it. Maybe ribs, maybe his nose. The pain made it hard to think. Floated nearby, examining his own claws as if bored. "Sorry," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "I forgot humans are so fragile." More laughter. Felt shame burn hotter than the pain. He'd been here for 2 months, and every single day felt like this. Every drill ended with bruises. Every exercise reminded him that Earth was new to the stars, that humanity was the weakest species in the coalition, that maybe his instructors back on Earth had been wrong to recommend him for the academy. Across the training deck, Cadet watched the scene unfold. She was small even by human standards, barely reaching 5'3". Her black hair was tied back in a tight bun, regulation style. Her face showed nothing, but her hands were clenched into fists. Had endured 2 months of similar treatment. She'd been accidentally hit during combat drills. She'd heard the whispers in the mess hall about how Earth should have stayed isolated, how first contact with humans had been a mistake, how humanity would never produce real warriors. She'd stayed quiet, kept her head down, survived. But watching bleeding on the deck while aliens laughed, something inside her snapped. The other human cadet in their class of 60, the only other person from Earth in this massive facility orbiting a distant star. They hadn't talked much, wasn't good at making friends, but had smiled at her once in the cafeteria when she'd been sitting alone. He'd nodded at her in the hallway when other cadets had pushed past her like she wasn't there. Now he was on his knees bleeding, and they were laughing. His boots clicked against the metal deck as she walked forward. The magnetic locks made each step loud in the sudden quiet. The laughter died as cadets noticed her approaching. She knelt beside and checked his injuries. Her father had been a combat medic before the coalition recruited him. She'd learned basic field medicine from watching him work. "Nose isn't broken," she said quietly in Korean, their native language. "But you've got a concussion, maybe cracked ribs." "I'm fine," whispered back, but blood kept pouring from his nose. "No, you're not," helped him sit up, supporting his weight. Then she stood, turned, and faced the crowd of alien cadets. Her voice rang out clear and cold in perfect galactic common. "Simulation override. Authorization 77 Delta." The holographic walls flickered and vanished. The training program froze. Every cadet in the chamber stared at her. Instructor's head snapped toward her. "Cadet, you do not have authority to." "I'm invoking trial right," said. Her voice didn't shake. "Article 73 of Coalition Military Law. Any cadet may demand formal combat to settle disputes." A ripple of surprise went through the aliens. Trial right was ancient law, older than the coalition itself. It dated back to the warrior cultures that had first formed the alliance. No instructor could refuse it. Stepped forward, his crystalline plates gleaming with anticipation. "You want to fight me, little human? I accept." "No," thighs swept across the entire chamber. "I challenge everyone." Silence, complete total silence. "Full contact combat scenario," continued. 15-minute timer. You send fighters in any combination you want. I'll face them all until I fall or time expires. She paused. "If I last 15 minutes, every cadet here writes a formal apology to Cadet and submits it to the commandant. If I fall before then, I withdraw from the academy and Earth sends no more cadets for 5 years." Gasps and clicks and growls filled the chamber. The alien cadets looked at each other in disbelief. Instructor's face was unreadable. "That's insane," whispered in Korean, trying to stand. "Don't." She looked down at him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with something fierce and unbreakable. "They need to learn," she said quietly. "Humans don't break easy." Then she turned back to the crowd and waited for their answer. The alien cadets gathered in clusters, speaking in hushed voices. Their translator implants created a buzz of overlapping languages, clicking, growls, thresher chirps. They were debating's challenge, weighing the odds, calculating whether this small human female could actually be serious. Stepped forward first, his massive frame casting a shadow over. "You realize you're asking to get killed, yes? This isn't a game." "I know exactly what I'm asking for," replied. Her voice was steady, but her heart hammered in her chest. She just bet everything, her career, Earth's reputation, possibly her life, on 15 minutes of combat against the galaxy's best warriors. A named pushed through the crowd. He stood 8 feet tall, covered in thick brown fur and muscle. "The human makes a fool's challenge. We accept." Cheers erupted from the alien cadets. They were excited now, eager to put this arrogant human in her place. Someone was already taking bets on how long she'd last. Most gave her less than 2 minutes. Instructor raised one crystalline hand for silence. "The challenge is recognized under coalition law. I cannot refuse it." His translator made his voice sound almost regretful. "But I strongly advise you to reconsider, Cadet. The terms you've set are extreme." "I don't reconsider," said simply. Studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. The combat will take place in Simulation Base 7. Neutral environment, variable gravity, standard obstacles. All other cadets and instructors will observe from the viewing gallery." He looked at the assembled aliens. "Choose your fighters wisely. Coalition law states that once a trial right begins, it cannot be stopped until completion or surrender." Grab's arm. Blood still dripped from his nose, staining his uniform. "This is crazy," he said in Korean. "You can't fight all of them." "I don't need to fight all of them," replied in the same language. "I just need to survive 15 minutes. "That's the same thing." She met his eyes. Behind the pain and fear in his face, she saw something else. Hope. Desperate, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would stand up for humanity. That they weren't just prey in a galaxy full of predators. "Go to medical," she told him gently. "Get those ribs checked. When this is over, I'll need you to help me walk out of there." "Thanks. Trust me." 20 minutes later, stood in the center of Simulation Bay 7. The environment had been set to asteroid field, rocky terrain floating in zero gravity, some pieces as small as basketballs, others as large as houses. Gravity fluctuated in pockets, making movement unpredictable. It was designed to be confusing, chaotic, perfect for testing adaptability. The viewing gallery above was packed. Every cadet in the academy had come to watch. Instructors lined the back wall, their faces showing everything from curiosity to disapproval. Even Commandant had arrived, her massive form towering over everyone else. Stood pressed against the glass, bandages on his face, his ribs wrapped tight. Medical had given him painkillers, but he'd refused to stay in the infirmary. He needed to see this. War standard combat training gear, flexible armor designed to absorb some impact but not prevent injury. Her opponents would wear the same. No weapons, no shields, just hand-to-hand combat in a hostile environment. The lights dimmed. A holographic timer appeared in the air, 15 minutes glowing red. "Begin," his voice echoed through the bay. The timer started counting down. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then 4 threshers entered from the opposite side of the bay, their 6 legs gripping asteroid surfaces as they bounded forward. They moved like hunting insects, fast and coordinated. Their 4 arms ended in sharp claws, and their compound eyes tracked from multiple angles. The gallery fell silent. This was it, the moment humanity's reputation would be decided. The first thresher launched itself at claws extended. It was fast, faster than anything human. It expected her to dodge left where gravity was lighter. Dropped straight down instead, grabbing a small asteroid and yanking herself beneath the thresher's attack path. In Earth's fighting styles, when facing a stronger opponent, you use their momentum against them. She kicked upward as the thresher passed overhead, her boot connecting with its abdomen joint, a weak point she'd memorized from xenobiology class. The thresher shrieked and tumbled through space, crashing into a larger asteroid. The other 3 attacked together, didn't try to fight them head-on. She couldn't. They were stronger, faster, had more limbs, but she was smaller. In low gravity, mass was a disadvantage. She pushed off asteroids, changed direction mid-flight, used the chaotic environment to break their coordination. When one thresher got close, she didn't block its claws. She evaded by centimeters and struck its eye cluster with a precise elbow strike. Humans had been studying alien anatomy for 15 years, mapping every species, looking for vulnerabilities. The coalition databases focused on strengths. Human databases focused on weaknesses. Another thresher grabbed her leg. Its grip was like iron. Didn't panic. She twisted, used the grip as an anchor point, and drove her other knee into its mandible joint. The joint cracked. The thresher released her with a screech. 3 minutes had passed. In the gallery, the laughter had stopped. Cadets pressed against the glass, watching in disbelief. The small human was winning. "How is she doing this?" someone whispered. Smiled through his pain. "She's not stronger," he said quietly. "She's just smarter." The threshers retreated, injured and confused. They'd never fought someone who moved like, someone who treated their advantages as liabilities, who fought not with strength but with precision and adaptation. Entered the arena next, along with 2 other. Their crystalline bodies were nearly indestructible. Human punches bounced off their hides like raindrops, but didn't punch them. She remembered something her father had told her. Every armor has a weak point, you just have to find it. Plates grew from their bodies in overlapping layers. The growth pattern created tiny gaps at the joints, shoulders, knees, neck. gaps small enough that most species couldn't exploit them. But human fingers were precise. Human hands had evolved to make tools, to grip small objects, to work with delicate precision. When charged, grabbed a small rock from a passing asteroid. As he reached for her, she drove the rock's sharp edge into the gap at his shoulder joint. Not deep, but deep enough. The plate cracked, roared in pain and surprise. She moved like water, flowing around their attacks, targeting joints with stones and strikes, blinding their visual sensors with debris. When one tried to grab her, she used its own arm as leverage to swing herself behind it and kick the back of its knee joint. The fell, confused about how something so small could topple something so large. 8 minutes. Was bleeding now. A claw had caught her shoulder. A thresher had struck her ribs. Pain screamed through her body with every movement, but she kept moving, kept fighting. Because stopping meant losing, and losing meant Earth sent no more cadets. The entered and 3 others, massive bear-like warriors who'd conquered half the galaxy through sheer brutal force. They didn't rush in like the others. They'd been watching. They'd learned. "You fight well, human," rumbled, "but you're tired, you're bleeding, and we are fresh." He was right. His vision blurred at the edges. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Her muscles burned with exhaustion. But she was still standing. 12 minutes. 3 more minutes, that's all she needed. They charged as one, using their numbers to overwhelm her. There was nowhere to run, no trick left to try. Smiled through bloody teeth. She'd saved her last lesson for now. Humans were persistence hunters. On Earth, they'd chased prey for hours, days, never stopping until the target collapsed from exhaustion. Human bodies were built for endurance, for pushing past pain, for refusing to quit. They were stronger, but had something they didn't. She had a reason to fight. Force for Earth, for every human who'd ever been called weak. The timer hit 15 minutes. The simulation froze. Collapsed to her knees, gasping, bleeding, barely conscious. But she was still there, still undefeated. In the gallery, no one made a sound. The silence in the viewing gallery stretched like a physical thing. Hundreds of alien eyes stared at the small human kneeling in the center of the asteroid field, blood dripping from her wounds, chest heaving with exhaustion. The holographic timer blinked zeros. 15 minutes. She'd done it. Commandant stood from her seat, her crystalline body catching the light. She was old by standards, a veteran of 30 campaigns, a warrior who'd fought in battles that had shaped the coalition. She'd seen every type of fighter the galaxy could produce. She'd never seen anything like this. The commandant activated her communicator. "Medical team to Simulation Bay 7, immediately." Then she strode toward the bay entrance, her heavy footsteps echoing through the corridor. In the arena, tried to stand and failed. Her legs wouldn't obey. Everything hurt, ribs, shoulder, face, hands. She could taste blood in her mouth. One eye was swelling shut. But through her remaining eyes she saw the backing away, their expressions uncertain. She saw the threshers clicking nervously to each other. She saw staring at her like she was a creature from a nightmare. The bay doors opened. Commandant entered, followed by medical staff with floating stretchers. But the commandant held up one hand, stopping them. She walked alone to where knelt, each step deliberate and measured. Forced herself to look up at the massive. Even on her knees, even barely conscious, she refused to lower her eyes. Stood over her for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying through the bay's speakers so everyone could hear. "Explain." One word, but understood what she was asking. "Explain how." Continued, "You defeated opponents with twice your strength, twice your size, with natural weapons you do not possess." Slav came out as a wheeze, it hurt to breathe. "They weren't stronger, Commandant." She coughed, spat blood. "They were just heavier, there's a difference." His translator hummed as it processed the distinction. "Elaborate." Struggled to her feet, refusing the medical staff who rushed forward. She swayed but remained upright. Through the bay's transparent ceiling, she could see the viewing gallery packed with watching cadets. Good. They all needed to hear this. On Earth, she began, her voice rough but carrying, humans aren't apex predators. We never were. We don't have claws or fangs or armor or venom. For millions of years, things bigger and stronger than us hunted us, killed us, ate us. She gestured to her battered body. So we learned to survive anyway. We learned that speed matters more than strength in the right environment. We learned that precision beats power when you know where to strike. We learned to turn surroundings into weapons, to use an enemy's advantages against them. A thresher in the gallery clicked skeptically, heard it through the speakers. "You think I won because I'm special?" asked, looking directly at the viewing window. "I'm not. I'm just average for a human. Any soldier from Earth could have done what I did. Because on our planet, we had to learn these things or die." She turned back to, "Your species evolved on high-gravity worlds with natural armor, are born with strength that can crack stone. Threshers have speed and weapons built into their bodies." She paused. "But humans, we had to build everything we needed from nothing. So we became very, very good at figuring out how to win when we shouldn't be able to." Commandant's visual sensors focused intently on, "You speak of your species as if weakness is strength." "Not weakness," corrected, "adaptability." She looked down at her bloody hands. "When you mocked Cadet for bleeding, you didn't understand what you were seeing. Every human has ancestors who bled and survived anyway. We're descended from beings that got wounded, got hurt, got knocked down, and got back up, again and again, for millions of years." She met the commandant's gaze. "That's not weakness. That's proof we don't break easy." In the viewing gallery, watched with tears streaming down his face. Beside him, other cadets shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry, others looked thoughtful, a few looked almost impressed. The medical team finally reached. She let them guide her to a stretcher, her legs finally giving out. But as they lifted her, she spoke one more time, her voice carrying through the bay. "I'll have those written apologies on the commandant's desk tomorrow morning, all of them." She looked at specifically. "That was our agreement." Then consciousness left her, and the world went dark. Woke in the medical bay 6 hours later. Her body was wrapped in regenerative bandages that tingled against her skin. Alien medical technology was incredible. Injuries that would have taken weeks to heal on Earth would be gone in days here. Sat in a chair beside her bed, his own bandages still visible on his face. When he saw her eyes open, he smiled. "You're insane," he said in Korean. "Completely insane." "Did it work?" Her voice was hoarse. "The commandant collected 60 written apologies this morning. They're on her desk right now." Smile widened. This was 3 pages long. He wrote about how he'd underestimated human resilience and tactical thinking. Half of them sound like they were written by lawyers trying not to get sued. Laughed, then winced as her ribs protested. "Good. The whole academy is talking about it. Everyone saw the recording," leaned forward. "Some of the alien cadets are saying you cheated somehow, but most of them," he paused, "most of them are quiet, thinking. I saw a group of threshers watching the fight replay in the common room. They kept pausing it, analyzing your movements." "Let them watch," said, "let them learn." The door to the medical bay opened. Commandant entered, her large frame barely fitting through the doorway designed for smaller species. Immediately stood and saluted. Tried to sit up, but the commandant waved her back down. "Remain resting, Cadet," pulled up a chair, specially reinforced for weight, and sat. "I've reviewed your combat performance 17 times. I've consulted with the other instructors and with Coalition High Command." Stomach tightened. Was she in trouble? Had she violated some regulation she didn't know about? "Your fighting style is unlike anything taught at this academy," the commandant continued. "It is not power strike doctrine, not grappling, not thresher speed hunting. It is something else entirely." "It's human," said simply. "Yes," nodded slowly. And that is the problem we now face. The Coalition has trained warriors for 300 years using methods that work for species with natural advantages. But Earth brings no such advantages. Your species arrives at the academy and we attempt to teach you to fight like or threshers. The Commandant's translator carried what might have been frustration. We have been teaching you wrong. Blinked in surprise, Commandant. You defeated 8 trained fighters not by being stronger, but by thinking differently, by using tactics that our conventional training does not cover. Leaned forward. Every species in the Coalition fights based on their evolutionary advantages. Humans have no such advantages, so humans must fight differently. The Commandant stood, her shadow falling across bed. There is an admiral arriving tomorrow, Admiral Park, the highest-ranking human in Coalition Fleet Command. She has requested to meet with you. Visual sensors glittered. I believe she will have questions about how you intend to change our training methods. Change of the training methods, repeated. Did you think your victory would go unnoticed? The Commandant's translator carried something that might have been amusement. You've proven that human combat doctrine has value. Now you must teach it. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. The laughter has stopped, Cadet. Now comes the harder part, making them understand why. The door closed behind her, leaving and alone in stunned silence. Finally spoke. Did she just say you're going to teach alien warriors how to fight like humans? Stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. I think she did. Can you do that? She thought about her father's lessons, about Earth's history of warfare, about the millions of humans who'd learned to survive against impossible odds. She thought about every martial art, every strategy, every desperate innovation humans had created when faced with stronger enemies. Yes, she said quietly, I think I can. Outside the medical bay window, stars stretched across the black of space, a galaxy full of species that had evolved as conquerors. And somewhere among those stars was Earth, a small blue planet whose people had evolved as survivors. It was time the galaxy learned the difference. Admiral Park arrived at Military Academy aboard a Coalition cruiser the next morning. The docking bay filled with whispers as cadets watched the ship settle onto its landing pad. Human admirals were rare in the Coalition fleet. Earth had only been part of the Alliance for 15 years, and most humans still served in junior positions. And stood at attention in the observation gallery above the bay. Medical had cleared for light duty, though regenerative bandages still covered her ribs and shoulder. Every breath came with a dull ache, but she could move without wanting to scream. That counted as progress. I've never met an admiral before, whispered, trying not to move his lips. Have you? Once, at graduation from Earth's training facility, kept her eyes forward. She gave a speech about representing humanity among the stars. I didn't really listen. Maybe you should have. The cruiser's ramp descended. Admiral Park emerged wearing a Coalition fleet uniform with 5 stars on her collar, the highest rank any human had achieved. She was in her 50s, with gray threading through her black hair, and she moved with the confidence of someone who'd fought for every inch of respect she'd earned. Behind her walked 2 aides and a security detail. The Admiral's eyes swept the docking bay, taking in everything with a soldier's assessment. Then she looked up at the observation gallery and her gaze locked onto. Fought the urge to step back. Even from 50 feet away, those eyes felt like they could see straight through her. Commandant met the Admiral at the bottom of the ramp. They spoke briefly, too quietly for to hear. Then both of them headed toward the elevator that led to the observation level. They're coming here, said, his voice rising with panic. Why are they coming here? Because she wants to meet the cadet who challenged 60 aliens and lived, replied. Her own heart hammered in her chest. Stay calm, we're not in trouble. How do you know? Because if we were in trouble, we'd be in the brig right now, instead of standing in an observation gallery. The elevator doors opened. Admiral Park and Commandant stepped out, followed by the security detail. The few other cadets in the gallery immediately saluted and scattered, giving them space, and snapped to attention, arms rigid at their sides. Admiral Park walked straight to and stopped 2 feet away, studying her with the intensity of someone examining a weapon. The silence stretched for 10 seconds, 20, 30. Finally, the Admiral spoke in Korean. "At ease, both of you." Relaxed slightly but kept her posture military straight. "Did the same." "Cadet," the Admiral said, switching to Galactic Common so could understand. "I saw your injury report from yesterday. How are you feeling?" "Better, Admiral. Medical cleared me this morning." "Good." Admiral Park turned to. "And you, Cadet, I've watched the recording of your combat trial 7 times now. I've read the incident reports. I've reviewed your entire academy record." She paused. "I have questions." "Yes, Admiral." "First question, why did you set those specific terms? You could have challenged just the cadet who injured. Instead, you challenged everyone and bet Earth's future academy slots on the outcome." Chose her words carefully. "It wasn't about one cadet, Admiral. It was about what they all believed, that humans are too weak to be here. If I'd only fought one alien, they would have called it luck. But fighting multiple opponents for 15 minutes, that couldn't be luck. It had to be skill." Admiral Park's expression didn't change. "You risked your career and Earth's reputation to make a point." "Yes, Admiral." "That was either brilliant or incredibly stupid. I haven't decided which yet." The Admiral turned to face the docking bay window, looking out at the stars. "Do you know how many humans serve in the Coalition military, Cadet?" "Approximately 12,000, Admiral." 12,347 as of last week, out of 3 billion Coalition personnel. Admiral Park's voice was quiet but sharp. "We're a statistical anomaly. Most species barely notice we exist, and the ones who do notice tend to view us as novelties, weak creatures from a light-gravity world who somehow convince the Coalition to grant us membership." She turned back to face them. "Yesterday, you gave them a reason to stop viewing us as weak, but you also created a problem." Frowned Admiral. "Show me your hands." Confused, held out her hands. They were still bruised from the fight, knuckles scraped and swollen despite medical treatment. Admiral Park took one of his hands in hers, examining it. Human hands. 15 bones in the palm and fingers, 27 bones total counting the wrist. Capable of precise manipulation, tool use, fine motor control. She released hand. Not designed for punching through armor or crushing skulls. Yet yesterday you disabled 8 opponents who were built for exactly that. The Admiral walked to the window, hands clasped behind her back. For 15 years, Coalition training has tried to make humans fight like aliens. Strength training to match power, speed drills to match thresher reflexes, endurance work to match stamina. She shook her head. "We've been trying to overcome our disadvantages. That was the wrong approach." Commandant spoke for the first time. "The Admiral and I have discussed a new training program, one designed specifically for human capabilities." His eyes widened. "A separate program." "Not separate," Admiral Park corrected. "Integrated. We'll teach aliens to fight like humans when appropriate and teach humans to maximize their natural advantages." She turned back to face. "Which brings me to my second question. Can you teach what you know?" I think so, Admiral. My father taught me field medicine and basic combat techniques. I studied Earth martial arts and alien anatomy. I watched human military history files, learned how our ancestors fought when outnumbered and outmatched." Paused. "But I'm not an instructor. I'm just a cadet." "You were just a cadet," Admiral Park said. "As of this morning, you've been promoted to training assistant, pending approval from Academy staff. Your primary duty will be developing curriculum for human combat doctrine." The words hit like a physical blow, struggled to process them. "Admiral, I'm 19 years old. I've been at this academy for 2 months. I don't have the experience to." You have exactly the experience we need, the Admiral interrupted. You understand how to win when you're the weakest person in the room. You know how to turn disadvantages into advantages. That's not something I can teach from a manual or a lecture. She stepped closer. Every human cadet who comes to this academy faces what you faced yesterday. They need someone who can show them they belong here, someone who's proven it. Spoke up hesitantly. Admiral if is developing training programs. Can I help? Admiral Park looked at him, then at, you two work well together. We're the only humans in our class, said. We have to work well together. A slight smile crossed the Admiral's face. Cadet, you're assigned as assistant to the assistant. Your job is to help Cadet develop and test training methods. She looked at both of them. This won't be easy. Most alien cadets will resist learning from humans. The instructors will be skeptical. High Command will be watching every move you make. One failure and they'll shut this program down. Understood, Admiral said. Good. Admiral Park pulled out a data pad and handed it to. These are preliminary curriculum requirements from Coalition High Command. You have 6 weeks to develop a basic training module. It needs to demonstrate clear combat advantages that any species can learn. If it works, we expand the program. If it doesn't, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Commandant spoke again. I am assigning you a training room and access to simulation systems. You will also have volunteer cadets. She emphasized the word volunteer, who have requested to participate in your program. Volunteers, echoed, who volunteered. Check your roster, said simply. Activated the data pad. A list of names appeared, along with species identifiers. She scanned through them, expecting maybe 5 or 10 names. There were 43, including. Stared at this name on the list, unable to believe what she was seeing. The cadet who'd injured, who'd mocked humans, who'd been so confident he could crush her, had volunteered to learn from her. Why, she whispered. Admiral Park's expression softened slightly. Because you showed them something they'd never seen before. You made them question their assumptions. She nodded toward the data pad. Not everyone will be receptive. Some volunteered just to prove you wrong, but others genuinely want to learn. The Admiral walked to the elevator, her security detail falling in behind her. At the doors, she paused and looked back. One more thing, Cadet, your combat trial yesterday. It's already being discussed at Coalition High Command. Some officials are angry. They think you disrespected military tradition and proper chain of command. Her eyes hardened. But others see what I see, the beginning of something important, something that could change how we think about strength and warfare. The elevator doors opened. Admiral Park stepped inside. Don't waste this opportunity, she said as the doors closed. Earth is counting on you. The elevator descended, leaving and alone with Commandant. The Commandant looked at them both for a long moment. Training begins tomorrow at 0600 hours. Your first session will be observed by senior staff. I suggest you prepare well. Yes, Commandant, they said in unison. Left, her heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Let out a breath he'd been holding. This is really happening. We're going to teach alien warriors how to fight. Looked down at the data pad, at the list of names, at the curriculum requirements. 6 weeks to prove that humanity deserved respect. 6 weeks to show that being human wasn't a weakness. 6 weeks to change everything. Yes, she said quietly, we are. 6 weeks passed like a blur of exhaustion and determination. Stood in training room 12, watching 43 cadets from 7 different species attempt a drill she designed. The exercise looked simple. Cross a field of floating obstacles while 3 opponents tried to stop you. But the catch was that the opponents were twice your size and strength. You couldn't win by overpowering them. You had to outsmart them. No, 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 called out as a cadet tried to shoulder charge through a blocker. You're thinking like your opponent expects. What did we discuss about expectations? The female named growled in frustration. Use expectations as a weapon. Exactly. Your opponent sees and expects strength and direct confrontation, so give them something else. Show me the redirect technique we practiced. Try it again. This time when the move to block she didn't charge. She feinted left, dropped low, and used this own momentum to spin past him. It wasn't perfect, her timing was off by half a second, but it worked. She reached the goal marker. Better said, again faster this time. Moved through the training room with a data pad, recording performance metrics. His ribs had healed completely, and he'd thrown himself into the training program with the energy of someone who'd found his purpose. He was good at this, good at breaking down techniques into teachable steps, good at spotting which cadets needed extra help. In the corner, practiced hand-to-hand drills with a thresher. The massive moved carefully now, precisely, using techniques that emphasized accuracy over raw power. He'd been the most dedicated volunteer, showing up early to every session and staying late to practice. He still hadn't apologized to directly. The written apology had been formal and distant, but his presence here, day after day, said more than words could. The training room doors opened. Commandant entered, followed by Admiral Park and 3 senior coalition officers, a general, a Thresher fleet commander, and a tactical advisor. They'd come to observe the final evaluation, the test that would determine whether human combat doctrine had value for the wider coalition military. Stomach tightened. This was it. 6 weeks of work coming down to one demonstration. Cadets' attention called out. The 43 volunteers immediately stopped their exercises and formed ranks. They stood straight, focused, ready, felt a surge of pride. 6 weeks ago, most of these cadets had mocked humans. Now they stood waiting for her instruction. Admiral Park stepped forward. At ease. Commandant has informed me that you're prepared for final evaluation. Is that correct, training assistant? Yes, Admiral said, her voice steady despite her nerves. Then proceed. Show us what 6 weeks of training has accomplished. Nodded to, who activated the simulation system. The training room transformed into a hostile environment, a damaged space station with failing gravity, debris floating everywhere, multiple entry points for enemies. Scenario, announced to the watching officers. A coalition team needs to secure a critical station before enemy forces arrive. The team consists of 4 cadets of mixed species. Their opponents are 6 hostiles with superior numbers and firepower. She paused. Traditional doctrine would call this mission impossible or require heavy casualties. We'll show you another way. She'd chosen 4 volunteers carefully. A Thresher named, and a human cadet named who'd arrived at the academy last week. 4 species, 4 different natural advantages, 1 shared training. The simulation began. Enemy fighters, played by training drones programmed with standard coalition combat protocols, entered from multiple directions. They moved aggressively, expecting the outnumbered team to defend a single position. But the team didn't defend. They scattered, using the environment exactly as had taught them. Despite his size, moved through the debris with careful precision, using cover instead of relying on his armor. Used her strength not for charging but for throwing large debris to create new cover positions. Speed became a tool for quick strikes and faster retreats. And small and weak by alien standards became the coordinator, calling out enemy positions, directing team movements, turning 4 individuals into one cohesive unit. The enemies never stood a chance. They'd been programmed to fight opponents who behaved predictably, who used their natural advantages in expected ways. This team fought like humans, adaptable, creative, relentless. Within 8 minutes, all 6 hostile drones were disabled and the station was secured. 0 casualties. The senior officers watched in silence. Then the general spoke, his translator making his voice sound like grinding gravel. Run it again. Same scenario, but give the enemies human combat protocols instead of standard training. His heart sank. That was much harder. Enemies who fought unpredictably, who adapted to your tactics, who didn't follow the patterns most cadets had memorized. But she nodded. Reset simulation. Enemy combat protocols set to human adaptive doctrine. The second run was brutal. The enemy drones adapted to every tactic, countered every strategy. But the team adapted too, falling back on the core principles had drilled into them. When your plan fails, make a new plan. When your strength fails, find a different strength. When you can't win, survive long enough to figure out how. This time it took 23 minutes and took a simulated injury that would have required medical attention. But they won. The senior officers conferred quietly among themselves, tried to read their expressions and failed. Alien faces were hard to interpret even after 6 weeks of working with them daily. Finally, Commandant spoke. The results are evident. Your training has produced measurable improvements in tactical flexibility and adaptive response. She looked at. Training assistant, do you believe this doctrine can be taught on a larger scale? Yes, Commandant. The principles work for any species because they're based on problem-solving rather than physical advantages. Any cadet can learn to adapt, to think creatively, to use environment as a weapon. The tactical advisor stepped forward. His name was, and he'd fought in more battles than had years of life. I have observed your methods. They are unorthodox, undisciplined by our standards. His visual sensors fixed on her, but effective. I cannot deny the results. Admiral Park smiled slightly. Then let's discuss implementation. The Coalition Military Academy will integrate human combat doctrine into standard training, starting next quarter. Training assistant and assistant will lead the program development, with support from senior staff. Felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. Not just approval for their pilot program, full integration into academy training. Every cadet who came through these halls would learn human tactics. Additionally, the Admiral continued, we'll be establishing similar programs at 3 other coalition academies. We'll need human instructors for those facilities. She looked at the 43 volunteers. Those of you who complete advanced training will be eligible to apply for instructor positions. You'll teach others what you've learned here. The cadets erupted in excited chatter. Even the normally stoic showed enthusiasm, their crystalline plates catching light as they turned to congratulate each other. Only remained quiet. He stood apart from the others, watching with an unreadable expression. The senior officers left to file their reports. The other cadets gradually filtered out, celebrating their success. Soon only, and remained in the training room. Approached slowly, each footstep heavy with his considerable weight. He stopped a few feet away and was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke in careful galactic comment. I owe you an apology that is more than words on paper. Met his eyes. You already wrote the apology the Commandant required. That was obligation, this is choice. Translator carried something that might have been shame. When I injured Cadet, I believed humans were weak, not just physically but in spirit. I thought you did not belong among warriors. He paused. I was wrong. You were taught to think that way, said. The whole coalition was taught that way. Yes, but I should have questioned what I was taught. Looked down at his claws, the same claws that had drawn blood 6 weeks ago. You fought for him when no one else would. You risked everything for another human's honor. That is not weakness. That is the strongest thing I have witnessed. Stepped forward. Why did you volunteer for the program? You could have refused. Because she made me understand something, said, looking at. Strength without purpose is meaningless. I have been strong my entire life. My people are strong, but we have forgotten why we became warriors, to protect, not to dominate. Watching you fight, seeing you use your weakness to protect others. He trailed off. You reminded me what a warrior should be. Felt something tight in her chest loosen. Thank you, that means more than you know. The nodded once, then left the training room. Looked at with a grin. We did it, we actually did it. We did, agreed, but she felt exhausted more than triumphant. I need to sit down. They sat together on the training room floor, backs against the wall, looking out at the simulated stars through the transparent ceiling. Do you think it'll last? Asked, this change. Thought about it. Some aliens will never accept humans as equals. Some will always see us as weak, but we've proven we have something to teach. That's enough for now. My father sent me a message yesterday, said quietly. He heard about the training program. He said he's proud of me. His voice cracked slightly. I never thought I'd hear him say that. Remembered her own father's message after her combat trial. He'd written simply, "You fought well, that's all that matters." She'd cried reading it. Earth is watching us now, she said. Every human cadet who comes after us will have an easier path because of what we did here. No pressure, right? Laughed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then spoke again. Thank you for that first day, for standing up when I couldn't. You would have done the same for me. I don't know if I would have been brave enough. Turned to look at him. Bravery isn't about being unafraid. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway, she smiled. You'll have your chance to be brave, trust me. Through the window, the stars stretched endlessly across the black. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet whose people had learned to survive against impossible odds. And now, in a training facility orbiting a distant star, humanity was teaching the galaxy what survival meant. Closed her eyes and let exhaustion wash over her. Tomorrow there would be more work, curriculum development, new cadets to train, skeptics to convince. But tonight she could rest. She'd made the laughter stop. She'd proven that humans belonged among the stars. And she'd shown that sometimes the weakest link in a chain is actually the strongest, because it's learned to bend without breaking, to adapt without breaking, to survive what would destroy others. On Earth, humans had a saying that had survived for thousands of years, passed down through countless generations who'd faced monsters and disasters and wars and won anyway. Fall 7 times, stand up 8. The galaxy was learning what that meant. And 19 years old and barely 5 feet 3 inches tall had taught them the first lesson. There would be many more to come.